When it comes to classic American muscle cars, models such as the Ford Mustang Boss 429 and 1970 Chevy Chevelle SS 454 and the pricey Plymouth Hemi Cuda have become synonyms for speed. However, among all the fastest and most memorable classic muscle cars, the 1963 Pontiac Tempest Super Duty is easily a standout, claiming the title for the fastest muscle car of the 60s. Despite that, the model has managed to fall by the wayside. Fitted with a glorious 421 Super Duty engine and plenty of race-ready tech, the extremely rare Pontiac Tempest SD created an everlasting legacy despite its painfully short production run. Here are 10 surprising facts you probably forgot about the '63 Pontiac Tempest Super Duty and what made it cool. Hit that subscribe button and let's dive in. The Pontiac Tempest Super Duty gets its name from the 421 cubic inch or 6.9-liter V8 that lives under its hood, separating it from the other Tempest trims, along with several body and chassis modifications. The engine's disclosed output stands at 405 horsepower, along with 425 pound-feet of torque, but experts claim the rating is severely understated, believing that the true output of the 421 is much higher, such as one Motor Trend test showing it actually produced 465 horsepower and a monstrous 505 pound-feet of torque. This certainly seems true when taking into account the performance specs of the 1963 Pontiac Tempest SD. It can blast from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 4.6 seconds, while also able to achieve the standing quarter mile in just over 12 seconds, a feat proved on numerous occasions. These stats made the Tempest Super Duty one of the quickest cars from the 60s and one of the fastest Pontiac muscle cars ever. In 1962, Pontiac needed a way to appeal to a younger audience by showcasing its ability to produce high-performance vehicles that could burn rubber at the drag strip. How did they do this? By throwing the powerful Super Duty 421 from the 1962 Pontiac Catalina inside two modified Tempest compacts, turning their entry-level car into an insanely fast muscle car. The idea was an instant hit, and Pontiac went on to manufacture two prototypes of the Tempest Super Duty before actually making the production versions. However, for reasons we'll mention further on, production was unfortunately cut short, and only 12 total production units were ever built, divided into 6 Le Mans coupes and 6 wagons. Pontiac was already dominating the drag strip and performing well in NASCAR thanks to its Super Duty engine. But to boost its reputation further, the GM automaker decided to use the engine in the smaller Tempest model, where it would compete in the NHRA's Factory Experimental Class event. However, the real deal was the 1963 American Challenge Cup at Daytona, where the Pontiac Tempest Super Duty would have to prove its worth among some of the best modified race cars in the world, doing so in less than ideal conditions. The outcome of this event would cement the Tempest Super Duty's status as a legendary American muscle car. The Daytona American Challenge Cup in 1963 featured several talented drivers and even more reputable vehicles, among which Pontiac's Tempest Super Duty was an understandable underdog. However, even under rainy conditions that lasted the entire day, the Tempest SD driven by Paul Goldsmith qualified 4th overall just behind 2 Corvettes and a Ferrari 250 GTO. The actual race went far differently, and Paul Goldsmith absolutely annihilated the competition, averaging over 155 miles per hour over 100 laps while lapping every other competitor several times over. He led the race from start to finish and won by an overwhelming margin, and while plenty of the credit goes to the racer, it would not have been possible if not for the Pontiac Tempest Super Duty's sheer performance. One of the most unique aspects of the '63 Pontiac Tempest Super Duty has to do with its transmission, which is one of the strangest of its kind. To aptly transfer the 421's power, Pontiac took the Tempest's usual 2-speed automatic transmission and turned it into a 4-speed version by adding a secondary unit behind the transaxle. They called this new 4-speed transmission the power shift, and instead of using a normal torque converter, it opted for a hydraulic clutch that was necessary to get the car moving by putting it into first gear while also serving to engage reverse. After that, the automatic transmission took care of shifting from second to fourth gear. While the 1963 Pontiac Tempest Super Duty was one of the best performing cars in the world at the time, it was undeniably the quickest muscle car from the entire 60s. Its 0 to 60 miles per hour runtime of 4.6 seconds, or faster far out, performed the likes of the 1968 Dodge Charger 426 Hemi, the nearly perfect 1969 Plymouth Hemi Roadrunner muscle car, and the historic 1965 Ford Mustang GT 350 race car. It even outpaces the legendary 1967 Ford GT40 Mk3, which took 5.1 seconds to 60 miles per hour. All the aforementioned vehicles took north of 4.8 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour, while also taking significantly longer to run the standing quarter mile when compared to the low 12-second time of the Tempest Super Duty. Hardly any official 0 to 60 times exist for the race car, so it's even possible that its 0 to 60 miles per hour takes even less than 4.6 seconds. Ray Nichols is one of the most brilliant minds as far as American stock car racing is concerned, and he was Pontiac's designated race car builder from 1956 to 1963. Thus, unsurprisingly, he played an important role in the development of the Tempest Super Duty, especially the one that would race in the American Challenge Cup. Nichols essentially took a Tempest SD that was good for drag racing and made it a capable oval racing and track racing machine by reworking its suspension and chassis while also fitting a roll bar to the vehicle. Most important of all was his idea to stack two transaxles together to create the Tempest Super Duty's renowned 4-speed semi-automatic transmission. As one of the rarest 60s muscle cars and the indisputable quickest, it's no surprise that the 1963 Pontiac Tempest Super Duty is also one of the most expensive these days. Buying one at an auction is the only possibility, unless you're lucky enough to find one of the abandoned ones in some random barn somewhere. In the eyes of many, the wagon version is the most desirable configuration of the Tempest Super Duty, and because one sold for a whopping $450,000 at auction, it certainly seems that way. Regarding the coupe version, one misinformed seller put one of the 6 units up for sale on eBay without knowing just how rare his barn find model was, and it ended up selling for $226,500. You may be wondering why the Pontiac only produced 14 total units of the 1963 Tempest Super Duty, 12 of which were sold, and the reason is quite unfortunate. Right around the time when the model entered production, Pontiac decided to immediately cancel production of Super Duty engines, resulting in the death of models such as the Catalina Super Duty and the new at the time Tempest Super Duty. This came just before GM also decided to place a ban on all factory-supported racing, killing any hopes of a potential Tempest race car even without the highly desirable 421 Super Duty engine. From the get-go, the main and only intent for the 1963 Pontiac Tempest Super Duty was racing, and that's why it was as close to a road-legal race car as you could get at the time. As a result, it didn't have a radio, a heater, no insulation, or sound deafening whatsoever, let alone a spare tire. Additionally, the Tempest SD also received further race-oriented modifications, such as plexiglass across the entire body, acid-dipped steel bumpers, the aforementioned PowerShift transaxle, and a cut-in-half fuel tank to clear up room for the race car's enhanced transmission. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this type of content, please comment number 1 so I can make more of it in the future. Also, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Until next time.